Allan Behm is the Director of the International and Security Affairs Program at the Australia Institute. He's been thinking and writing on nuclear non-proliferation matters for years, and he joins us in the studio. Allan, welcome back. The NPT conference, it seems to have added significance for Australia this time around. Why so?
Well, I think for two reasons, Greg. First of all, we're clearly right out in front when it comes to the use of nuclear power for war vessels, particularly submarines. And secondly, we have a very long investment in the NPT regime from the point of view of global security. So we've got two big reasons for being there.
On that second point, and we'll come back to the first, but on the second, is there any reason, because of instability in the world right now, to think that adherence to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty is fracturing, or that it's been fair to say it's been a fairly cohesively, tightly bound agreement? Is it under threat?
Well, there have been a few escapees. Iran clearly is wanting to be an escapee. North Korea is. Israel is not within the treaty, but clearly it does have nuclear weapons. So the treaty is not really comprehensive. But within the treaty framework itself, there are a lot of unhappy parties, simply because the quality of observance of Article 3, which applies to all of the non-nuclear weapons countries, has been very high. But on Article 6, which is reduction of nuclear arms, has been very poor. So the tension between those two articles and the nuclear weapon states and the non-nuclear weapon states has been heightened over the last few years.
What would give you any confidence? Do you have any confidence that a conference of this sort, a review process that's underway in New York, might make any difference?
Look, I'm always confident, Greg. I do think that the nuclear weapon states have got to begin to thinking about either or both lowering their numbers of nuclear weapons, because they've got enough to nuke us more times than we will ever survive it. But more particularly than that, there needs now, I think, to be a declaration on the part of all of the non-nuclear weapon states on non-first use, particularly after both President Putin and Foreign Minister Lavrov have implicitly brought nuclear weapons use into the Ukraine war by threatening any country that intervenes in Ukraine with a nuclear strike.
So why would they listen to some sort of resolution or determination made by non-nuclear states?
It's always the question, and that's why you've got to do it. You've got to keep up the pressure. We've come very, very close to countries making a non-first use statement in the past. Some indeed have, but a much more comprehensive statement involving particularly Russia at the moment, by force of numbers, would be a good thing, and we've got to try it. We may fail. You might fail on anything, but you will never succeed if you don't try.
Okay, so that brings us back to the first of your points about Australia's entree to this round of talks in the environment in which it wants to pursue nuclear-powered submarines. Is that to our detriment in our standing with the rest of the treaty member countries?
Not necessarily. But it really depends on how we handle it. I think in the lead up to this particular review conference, we've handled it very badly. The fact that we took Indonesia, Malaysia and the rest of the Southeast Asians by surprise when the AUKUS announcement was made was not clever diplomacy. And the result of that really is the fact that the Indonesians have put a working paper into this review conference, specifically focused on nuclear propulsion for submarines. It has Malaysia's support in that, and obviously it has China's. So already we have a split between ourselves and Southeast Asia on a very important matter. So Australia, Britain and the United States have put in an alternative paper justifying the use of these things. So to have a split between ourselves and Southeast Asia at a time when we've been doing enormous amount of repair work in Southeast Asia is, I think, unhelpful.
Can that particular split be repaired? Are our differences irreconcilable?
I don't think they're irreconcilable, but I think it will take a huge amount of diplomatic effort. The delegation will have to work overtime to bring those two working papers anywhere near each other. And it would have been interesting, for example, to have thought about whether we could co-sponsor the Indonesian paper, because by co-sponsoring something on a protocol for the acquisition of nuclear power for submarines, endorsed by Southeast Asia would be really helpful.
Are you in that school of thinkers that says Australia would have been better advised? I know they exist in the US because we've spoken to one of them. Australia would have been better advised not to go for highly enriched nuclear reactors on its submarines, but instead to have stuck with, say, something that the French were offering but we weren't buying, low enriched.
Look, I think that there are a number of possibilities. A low enriched projection would be very, very much better and have much, much lower safeguards burdens on us. The high enriched one, though, is the ones that both the Americans and the Brits use. There are no options.
Sure.
So we're caught in between a French submarine, which we're not going to get, and a British or an American submarine, which we aspire to get.
It does sound like we are going to get, or they tell us we are anyway. Nancy Pelosi, later tonight, maybe when most Australians are asleep, will arrive in Taiwan, very much against the warnings, bellicose warnings, it must be said, from Beijing. What will flow from this visit?
Very hard to tell. I think that Ms Pelosi is probably seeking to secure her legacy as a human rights activist in the United States by taking the matter up to China. And one can understand that because she's not going to be in the job for very much longer, and if she doesn't secure it now, she won't secure it at all. However, it's got many dangers in it. Clearly, the White House, in the fact that it hasn't intervened at all at this point, is very much in two minds about this, and she must know that she does not have the approval or support of the President, even though he has not come out against her. So that's one problem. The other problem, of course, is how this might play into the midterms, and essentially because it makes the President look impotent, I'm not sure that the benefits deriving from it domestically in the United States are going to be at all proportionate with the disbenefits that are going to arrive out of an intensification of the problems with China.
Yeah, so you're presenting this to us through a sort of a US prism. What about through regional security across the Strait of Taiwan? A lot of analysts are saying expect something. Already planes are buzzing around. Chinese PLA Air Force planes are buzzing around the island of Taiwan. How far might they push any form of protest, retaliation, call it what you will, after?
I think they'll push it very strongly. They'll amp up the rhetoric for sure. That will happen tomorrow. After that, I think that they will test the air defence interdiction zone much more than they have already. Their tests to date have not actually been all that serious, Greg, to tell you the truth. There are 300 kilometres south of Taiwan is where they do their incursions. I think that they will move that north. They'll start rattling the sabre a bit. The tension will be highly intensified. They'll be staring each other militarily, and I think it is a pretty poor result for what I think is little benefit that's going to come out of this visit by the Speaker.
And just finally, you don't think that either leader, President Xi or Joe Biden, might have cleared some space, some understanding for themselves about this retaliatory phase when they had their own phone hookup only, well, it was a few days ago now, I don't quite remember the day, but they did.
I doubt it, and the reason I doubt it is that the White House still hasn't taken a position on Nancy Pelosi's visit. Whether President Xi raised it directly like that with the President, we don't know. I suspect he didn't, because had he done so, I think there would have been some clearer signals out of the White House. So we're left at the moment, I think, with lots of question marks and almost certainly an amping up of tension. Not a good thing.
No, not a good thing, and that could happen as soon as through the night tonight, our time, I imagine. Allan Behm from the Australia Institute, thanks again. Always great to have your analysis on the program.
Thank you, Greg.